everyone. I am your host, Alice Dr. Stevens. And with me, we have Miss Shanika Sanchez, who will go ahead and introduce herself, and then I will just share a little about myself. The floor is yours, Miss Sanchez.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Stevens. So, my name is Shanika Sanchez, and I am a licensed clinical social worker. I am the clinical director for Holistic Elevation. I've been there since April of 2021. I've been a licensed clinical social worker for about 14 years, working in the mental health field. Predominantly, my focus and population has been with foster care youth, um, and just that population specifically, but I work with the gambit of the whole lifespan. Um, my focus and concentration is trauma and attachment. And I am loving this field that I'm in. I'm passionate about providing clinical services to the community. The newest thing that I've been doing since 2021, 22 is supervising clinicians to educate them to go out into the field to provide excellent care for those that we serve. And I've had the awesome privilege to do that under the auspices of Dr. Stevens at Holistic Elevation. So I think it's your turn.
Yes, it is. Thank you very much. Thank you for such a warm and warmth introduction about yourself. It is great to be able to co-host this opportunity, especially as we're facing COVID and we're within this pandemic. So, just a little about myself. I am certified in trauma. My area of expertise is trauma focus. I do have a doctorate in prevention science, which in summary provides an umbrella of all the social determinants, the inequity, public health inequity, education inequity, generational cycles of trauma, any social challenges that individuals are facing. My degree and my educational background, in addition to the creation of Holistic Elevation, is to find ways from individual level all the way to level to help reduce on those risk factors that are being faced. So we're all about leaving a footprint. So,
Absolutely.
with that being said, we don't want to forget that it is Black History Month. We want to send, yes, sending out the love and the shout outs to all the
Yeah.
brothers and sisters out there. We love you guys. We are thinking about you as we go through this traumatic and historical event. This is a time where many individuals are missing loved ones, having difficulties in being able to connect with loved ones. And we want to kind of understand and provide a framework as to how exactly, with everything that's going on, mental health is becoming the forefront of conversations. It's no longer a taboo, but it is opening the doors for conversations. How do we as professionals actually go through and help break those stigmas when it comes to mental health? So, Miss Shanika, tell us what, when you think about yourself, like for us as a as co-host, when you think of mental health, what empowers you to be within this field?
Wow. What empowers me to be within this field? Um, Serving the community at large really empowers me, but I also think that talking, with you a lot, you've really instilled in me this idea of generational trauma. And at first, I didn't understand what it was. And it really got me to thinking about what is generational trauma. So, looking within my own family and knowing that there's been things that family members have gone through generation after generation after generation, it was something that I wanted to focus on to say, while I'm here on earth, how do I address the situations that the family is experiencing? And how do I learn the skills? And how do I bring it back to the family? So while serving the community empowers me, it is also a personal endeavor of mine to bring these skills and information back to my own family, because you often say, what is your legacy, right? What are the footprints that you want to leave? And for me, my legacy is looking at what are the generational traumas that our family has experienced and breaking the cycles. And even if in my lifetime I'm not able to break the cycles, at least I can bring back information that it's like planting a seed, so that way the it can take root and it can grow, and that those after me can continue on learning. So that's what empowers me, is that there's the possibility and the hope that generational trauma does not have to continue. It does not have to exist. So taking it from a community perspective and applying it to a personal um, endeavor for my own family, but then also looking at different other families and bringing it to their awareness too, because generational trauma is not just a trend or like a keyword; it's a real thing. And so that's what empowers me.
Yes, thank you. Definitely. I hear legends. Every time I hear people talking about changing what history has created, whether within our family norms, whether it is within societal norms, I'm hearing legends. We're creating legends based on what individuals were going through. And sometimes for us as parents, we don't realize that we're continuing a cycle that have impacted us negatively. Yes, there are generational cycles that have empowered us, have encouraged us to be able to bring about change. But when we think of the grassroots of generational cycles, it can be where today I saw the 1964 post of what generational cycles look like. And it was where a father went to work, the boss was yelling at him, he got upset, he went home, he started yelling at his spouse, and the spouse got upset and started yelling at the child, and the child got upset and started yelling at the cat. And for us, when we think of generational cycles, we only think of the severe trauma. We don't realize that there's also the emotional impact that brings to within the family, the emotional disconnect, the family dysfunction, the high risk of low education,
Yeah.
the continuous cycle of poverty. Sorry, I can go on when it comes to trauma.
I know, but you're absolutely right. You're absolutely on target. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. So as we're looking at trauma overall and we're looking at generational cycles, it is so important when we're working with our clients to be able to identify what are some of those practices that you are doing that will pass on to you that may have increased your stresses,
Mhm.
that may, especially now with the pandemic, we have a lot of the forefront of those risk factors being able to be seen, where you see where individuals, because they face poverty prior to COVID, this has increased or magnified the challenges that they are going through right now: homelessness, relationship
Absolutely.
challenges. You have
Hmm.
individuals that are not able to function, and then one of your favorite focus is grief.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah,
Grief.
we see that a lot. I mean, the pandemic, I mean, that has increased tenfold, right? Because of lives being lost because of the pandemic. So it has increased tenfold, but even more so due to the nature of what the impact of COVID has had on families. I mean, there were times that uh, uh, funerals were Zoomed, and families didn't have the traditional goodbye or the traditional, way to celebrate the life of a loved one.
Yeah.
Um, Even within my own family, we lost a family member due to COVID, and it was really traumatic because there's no closure. I mean, the way that COVID has impacted families has been tremendously um, traumatic to individuals. So it has affected everyone in a different way, because here you are trying to understand what it is that we're dealing with as a pandemic in and of itself. But then we all know that the death of a loss, the loss of, the death of a loved one. So when we lose a loved one, that's stressful in and of itself. But not to be able to have the traditional mourning ritual, the mourning, with the way in which we mourn, the rituals. I mean, these individuals, because of the pandemic, the bodies have been taken away, and you cannot even like prepare the body with traditional ways in which the families has been able to say goodbye. That's stressful in and of itself. um, it's changed the trajectory of the way families have even been able to have closure, be able to come together, to be able to bond. So this pandemic has just created a higher level of stress that I've not seen ever.
Agreed. I totally agree, because when we think of it, there are different ways individual with the pandemic, the loss. We have children that are going through and losing their parents at a rate that is so high. And when we think of it, that we're also facing the foster care system, the kinship program, where children are being placed within those cares. Loved ones are losing each other as time goes by. The development of uncertainty is so high. So when we think of stressors, we sometimes we use terminologies, but we may not be able to have a clear understanding. So for our audience listening, we want to be able to provide a clearer understanding as to what exactly stresses are. And stressors can be anything through experience, it can be through an event. Something that has caused a tremendous load of adjustment can be a stressor, where you have to think of something on moments where you don't have control. Forces, one of the great examples. When we think of forces, think of individuals in domestic violence situation, people who are facing financial difficulties, people who feel they don't have a say and everything around them is losing control. They lose their house, they lose their car, they lost their job, they are not able to control what is happening. The conditions, the financial conditions, the poverty or the socioeconomic conditions, all this can increase stresses for individuals. And in addition to those stresses, you have different levels of stresses. In addition, you have the toxic stresses, which can impact a person's mental health. And also toxic stress can also cause brief psychotics, and we don't realize it can stress can also impact a person's medical, and we'll talk a little about that as we go on, because it is all connected.
Yeah.
And as a result of those stress, it is resulted within either physical or emotional ways. So if you're stressed out, you either gonna break something, or you
Mhm.
gonna find a way to emotionally expel it out or keep it in.
Mhm.
So understanding that it can be either internal or external. Anything you want to
Mhm.
add to that?
I mean, I think with regard to the individuals that I see in treatment, when it becomes internal, when they hold it in and they don't express it, whether it's verbally or have that external outlet, it becomes a somatic issue, right? It
Mhm.
becomes like a physical issue. So, a lot of physical ailments start to begin. And one of the things that has been revealed, even through talk therapy, is, individuals will come and they'll say, like my body hurts, my
Yep.
back hurts, my stomach hurts, my head hurts. And when we really explore, when did this start? When we pinpoint it and we look at the origins of when it starts, they're really able to identify that this wasn't this way prior to like a stressful event. And so because they lack support or lack an outlet, they internalize it, and so then their body, right? We all
Mhm.
know, like we learn that the body keeps the score. our
Yes.
body takes it on. And so that is one of the things that I'm finding a lot of my clients um, have body issues internally because of stress.
Yes, and that is so great because you actually went into the impacts, the how overall a human being, what are the various areas the stress actually impact them. So we have the academics for children and young adults or even adults who may be gaining an education, a skill or a trade. They have academic challenges, and that can be as a result. They can it can impact their concentration, it can impact their ability to accomplish or complete their assignments. It can also impact their memories. So knowing those signs of stressors and understanding that individuals based on their age, their stressors or their response to stress may end up being different. What a child might be demonstrating as behavioral conduct disorder, it might be that it is their reaction to the stress that they're going through. It can be whether that child is going through depression, anxiety, so many different things can be happening as a result of that stressor. And then you have the mental component. And with the mental component, I just touch a little on it, but if you want, you can go into it. I can give you that opportunity to go into it, and then I can do behavioral if you want, if that's okay with you. Okay.
Sure. Sure. Um, so, well, when you say, well, I just want to back up to like the academic part of it. Um, and I love being able to share information through stories.
Mhm.
So just very briefly, I worked with a high schooler who went to school, and individuals thought that he was lazy, right? And so one of the things that occurred was he was at the bus stop one day and he witnessed a shooting right in front of him, right before he was getting on the bus, the school bus, and he didn't tell anybody. And I was working with this individual, and he didn't even tell me. But he could not concentrate. Literally, he could not concentrate. And so, one of the things that ended up happening was his inability to focus, his inability to concentrate was um, interpreted that he did not care or that he was lazy. And it was just the relationship building, the fact that I was showing up, just the connection. Sometimes along the journey, it's just the ability to be there with somebody, to let them know, like, even though other people are viewing you in this manner, um, I don't know you to be that. I don't know you to be this lazy person. I see you come to school every day. For the fact that you're showing up, that says something to me. So if you show up, I'll show up. So I would show up to school, and then one day he completely broke down and said, I saw somebody get shot in front of me before I got on the school bus, and it clicked. This kid wasn't lazy. There's no way he could do the work that is being asked of him. So, Dr. Stevens, when you talk about going into the mental part of it, it's sort of in the way that someone will interpret that and internalize that, um, in the way that they will develop, anxiety, or they'll develop, depressive symptoms, or um, they're just trying to make sense of it. And because he wasn't speaking to anybody, he developed other symptoms, because he was trying to make sense of the fact that this kid had the blood of somebody who had been shot on his sneakers. And
Mm.
that was unbelievable to me.
Mm.
So go ahead. Were you gonna
So
say
no,
something?
as you said, as you were talking, what I was thinking of is the iceberg method, where you only see what's on the surface, but you're not seeing what exactly is on there. So what individuals were seeing was the fact that he was not able to get his work done. He was not able. It looked or it appeared as if he was lazy, and that's also for trauma. When we work with individuals, we need to be able to work with trauma lenses,
Yeah.
and that is a very great example that you gave. So, going in with a trauma lens when we're working with individuals, regardless of their age, regardless of what they bring, about applying empathy in there. When we think of trauma, it is all about applying empathy. So, I love that. And I wanted to pull up the screen, understanding primary causes and secondary causes. The primary cause for his behavioral changes was the fact that he witnessed somebody being murdered, but his secondary causes was what that was being seen, the fact that he was not paying attention and other things to that extent, and that could lead to academic failure.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And then when we think about the mental components of that, right? We think about, his inability to focus and his inability to feel safe, right? Because when we think about trauma, it's that whole idea of like, I don't feel safe. He didn't feel safe to tell anybody in his family. He didn't feel
Mhm.
safe to tell anybody in school. So he kind of like compartmentalized in his mind this event. And what kind of made me think about like what in the world happened was there was this event and the bus driver then like drove away and kept collecting kids as if this was normal. And
Mhm.
so it's you create this norm. So the mental part of it is like he's trying to figure all of this out because he's a kid. And you would think like, hold up, the bus driver would at least call 911. The bus driver would do something. So now you're in a very um, adolescent mindset, and you're saying, who's going to save me? Who's going to fix this? Who's
Mhm.
going to, and so by the time he got to school, he couldn't even speak. He could not
Yeah,
even speak.
because what happens as we continue to we understand the brain, and we know that the brain does not fully develop until it was 25, but now research has changed the number again, which makes sense because a brain is developing based on the trauma that it is being exposed to. If a brain is not exposed to a large percentage of trauma, then it will be able to function at a higher rate and be able to develop at that age that it is designed for, which is 25. But if it is exposed to trauma, then it gets into what is called a heightened fright state. And when it is in that heightened fright state, is like it is in that frozen state of when an event happened. So when we learn about you either freeze or you run, your brain is in that freeze mode. And once it is in that freeze mode, it's like you're not sure what to do. You're stuck within that moment. So for that gentleman, it definitely sounds like he was within that fright zone, that heightened fright zone, where fear is developed, anxiety is developed, and so many unhealthy emotional functioning develop, but not until the coping mechanism and the techniques, the strategies are so important to be able to help individuals go through a traumatic event, to help them cope with that traumatic event. And that's what was offered to him when you started having those conversations and creating or making individuals feel emotionally safe, physically safe. Because if he felt that no one cared about him, then he will continue staying in that moment. But for human beings, this is where sometimes we describe them as trees or like seeds. Children are like seeds. You take them and you plant them. And if you allow that tree or that seed to continue growing without having a landscaper, the weeds will continue growing around that tree, and its purpose and its function within the world as a tree will not be productive. because it will have so many risk factors, so many barriers to overcome. But if you have a landscaper who comes and cut down the weed once a month, once a week, once a year, it gives that tree a purpose. And that tree can either outgrow the weeds, it will have damages on it, but it depends on how often it is being provided. So when we think of trauma and we think of mental health, that's why it is so important for every child, every individual to be able to have a landscaper. And that landscaper can be a mental health professional, it can be a teacher, it can be someone that will be able to show you care, but they will also be able to help reduce on your trauma, to be able to increase your protective factors and reduce your risk factors. So while we're talking about caregivers and understanding trauma, we also want to speak to directly to the parents, because the 2021 CDC data does show that there is a high for females between the ages of 12 to 17. Suicide attempts have increased by 51% based on the data released by CDC last year. And it is important for us to know that, especially if we have children, with everything that is going on right now, children may be resilient, but it is a certain period your resiliency can continue flourishing. It needs to be perished, like refilled up.
Yeah.
So, so for us, it is so important as we're working with individuals, working with families, we get the help that is needed. So for individuals out there, if you are in the Delaware area and you or your family are in need of mental health services, whether it is trauma based, depression, anxiety, whatever challenges you are facing, please send us an email or give us a call. We are here to service the community. We are here for everyone. So please, 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 regardless of your age, regardless of your gender, your race, your sexuality, we are open to every single person. So please get the help that is needed. As time continues throughout the month, we will have different mental health professionals, nutritionists, and other individuals within the profession coming in to talking to us. So this is our first live show, and we wanted to be able to just touch base with everyone because we realize that this pandemic is taking a toll on individuals' mental health.
It
And
really is. Yeah.
yeah, and this is a stream we feel as if we'll be able to reach a multitude of individuals. So, Miss Shanika, the floor is yours.
Yeah. So, just a little bit of history. Prior to coming to Holistic Elevation, I was in the school district, and working with individuals in school. It was a time of uncertainty. And one of the impacts of the pandemic was sort of this isolation, right? The kids, our children were so used to routine, coming to school, having relationships with friends, having relationships with teachers, having relationships with bus drivers, just office staff, whomever, just outside of their home. And then the pandemic hit, and one of the things that really impacted kids was this sort of, now you're isolated, and not only children, the parents too. Some parents lost their jobs, which increased stress in the home. Finances, were lost, so finances were impacted. Stress all around. So the family was impacted. Not only just communities were impacted, but individuals were impacted. And so one of the things that I've seen as we've like sort of integrated back into the schools were or is children not knowing how to develop those social skills, or I don't know the correct wording. It's maybe not develop, but to engage. in the social skills, because there was a period of time in which they had not been around other children. So think about the fact that there were kindergartners whose first year of school was just online. They had no connection to like what it was to sit in a classroom, right? Or to learn what it was like to walk in a hall, or to know what it was like to like eat lunch in a cafeteria. So what we're seeing now is the inability to connect. So the impact of this pandemic has done so much to our students. And one of the interesting things is that a teacher had said to me in a parent teacher meeting was, we may not see the full effect of this until 10 years from now.
Yes.
And that's alarming.
And that is what we do not want, because if we can think of Katrina, when we think of generational cycles, it is not only the physical component, but the psychological impact of generational cycles. So, a great example is Katrina. When Katrina happened, a lot of individuals were displaced. And due to their displacement, they have individuals who lost or re-lost their loved ones because the cemeteries were gone. The house their families built were gone. The emotional attachment they had within those houses were gone. What made them connected and felt grounded, that itself was gone. And that caused a psychological impact to this day that individuals are still going through it. They still have to go ahead.
Yeah. Go ahead. No, I was going to say absolutely, absolutely. It reminds me, and I'm sorry, I mean, it just triggers that thought. Hurricane Maria, right, in Puerto Rico. My family is from Puerto Rico, and Hurricane Maria, when that occurred, it was 2 years after the hurricane occurred that I had gone to Puerto Rico. Streetlights were still not working. That the infrastructure of that island was still down, and it's like, what we no longer hear in the media, the community still deals with.
Yes.
So it doesn't have to be like in another on another island, or it's within our communities, meaning that media will highlight what is the big thing at the moment. But what we're learning as mental health professionals is that the impact still exists after the media goes away.
Yes, and then with your explanation, what AI pictures, picture a nice castle. The outside of the castle is wonderful and well built. You were living in a smaller, beaten up house, and on the outside, it looked broken down. But within that house, you had laughter, you had joy, you had connectiveness, you had happiness. But now something happened and it took that away. Now you are placed into a bigger house. On the outside, it looks well taken care of, but in the inside, it's a horror place.
Yeah.
It's a place no one wants to be because they don't know where they are. It's not able to reconnect and create that emotional connection that they want. So when we think of psychological trauma, psychological stress, there are a lot of people who are attempting suicides, that are losing their lives as a result of suicides. And we look at them and we're like, oh, they had it all together. Why would they kill themselves? But we don't understand. We need to be able to start understanding the psychological impact of whether it is social pressure, family pressure, being able to keep up to the stigma. Also, the fear of uncertainty is one of the driving forces. With
Mm-hmm.
everything going on, people are fearful. They if a loved one goes to the hospital just for typical routine, the children or someone within the household who may not know might be freaking out, like, oh my God, will this loved one be coming back? Because we're seeing it over and over that people go in and they lose their lives so quickly as a result of COVID. So
Mm-hmm.
right now, what I want to do, I want to share my screen and play a video. And this video is about trauma.
The nutritionist said I should eat root vegetables. Said if I could get down 13 turnips a day, I would be grounded, rooted. Said my head would not keep flying away to where the darkness lives. The psychic told me my heart carries too much weight. So for $20, she'd tell me what to do. I handed her the 20. She said, stop worrying, darling. You will find a good man soon. The first psychotherapist said I should spend 3 hours a day sitting in a dark closet with my eyes closed and my ears plugged. I tried it once, but couldn't stop thinking about how gay it was to be sitting in the closet. The yogi told me to stretch everything but the truth, said to focus on the out breath, said everyone finds happiness if they can care more about what they give than what they get. The pharmacist said Klonopin, Lamictal, lithium, Xanax. A doctor said an antipsychotic might help me forget what the trauma said. The trauma said, don't write this poem. Nobody wants to hear you cry about the grief inside your bones. But my bones said, Tyler Clemente dove into the Hudson River convinced he was entirely alone. My bones said, write the poem. To the lamplight, considering the riverbed, to the chandelier of your faith hanging by a thread, to every day you cannot get out of bed, to the bullseye of your wrist, to anyone who has ever wanted to die. I have been told sometimes the most healing thing we can do is remind ourselves over and over and over, other people feel this too. The tomorrow that has come and gone and it has not gotten better. When you are half finished writing that letter to your mother that says, I swear to God, I tried. But when I thought I'd hit bottom, it started hitting back. There is no bruise. Like the bruise, loneliness kicks into the spine. So let me tell you, I know there were days when it looks like the whole world is dancing in the streets where you break down like the doors of their looted buildings. You are not alone. And wondering who will be convicted of the crime of insisting you keep loading your grief into the chamber of your shame. You are not weak just because your heart feels so heavy. I have never met a heavy heart that wasn't a phone booth with a red cape inside. Some people will never understand the kind of superpower it takes for some people to just walk outside some days. I know my smile looks like a gutter on a falling house, but my hands are always holding tight to the ripcord of believing a life can be rich like the soil, can make food of decay, turn wound into highway, pick me up in a truck with that bumper sticker that says it is no measure of good health to be well adjusted to a sick society. I have never trusted anyone with a pullback bow on my spine the way I trust the ones who come undone at the throat, screaming for their pulse to find the fight to pound. 4 nights before Tyler Clemente jumped from the George Washington Bridge, I was sitting in my hotel room in my own town, calculating exactly what I had to swallow to keep a bottle of sleeping pills down. What I know about living is the pain is never just ours. Every time I hurt, I know the wound is an echo, so I keep listening for the moment when the grief becomes a window, when I can see what I couldn't see before through the glass of my most battered dream. I watched the dandelion lose its mind in the wind, and when it did, it scattered 1,000 seeds. So the next time I tell you how easily I come out of my skin, don't try to put me back in. Just say, here we are, together at the window, aching for it to all get better, but knowing there is a chance our hearts may have only just skinned their knees, knowing there is a chance the worst day might still be coming. Let me say right now, for the record, I am still gonna be here, asking this world to dance, even if it keeps stepping on my holy feet. You stay here with me, okay? You stay here with me, raising your bite against the bitter dark, your bright longing, your brilliant fist of loss, friends. If the only thing we have to gain in staying is each other, my God, that is plenty. My God, that is enough. My God, that is so much for the light to give. Each of us at each other's backs, whispering over and over and over, live, live, live. Thank you.
Wow.
Thank you so much, y'all. Take such good care of each other.
Mhm.
I'm speechless. Ah.
Well, we're warming up here.
Oops.
I'm going to tell you the best.
Yes, take a few moments.
Whoa.
What are you like right now as we're going through? It is trauma is real. The impact of trauma is real. When a person goes through a traumatic event, it is the emotional impact that actually prolongs the response to be able to heal from that trauma. So when we think of and we see individuals going through trauma, sometimes what we need to be able to do is just give a hug, ask how you're okay, how are you doing, but be present when we're asking those questions. Be there with them.
Yeah, I think just hearing the poem, it touches me on so many levels, right? Because there's so many people that I come into contact with in treatment that's all they've known.
Mm-hmm.
That's all they've known. They don't realize that healing is possible. They don't realize that it's what happened to them.
Mm-hmm.
Because I hear all the time as a therapist, I'm broken. I'm the problem. I can't be fixed. And I sit with individuals in their story and I let them know it's a journey. And I let them know that this whole idea of people asking them what's wrong with you, right? Because that's like trauma informed, right? You know, the big buzz today is don't ask what's wrong with you, ask what happened. But I tell them the look on their face when I say, listen, you're not broken. You're not broken. Let's go back in and see what happened to you. What happened? I work with 60-year-old women that tell me their life stories of traumatic events. And I say, tell me about the little girl. Tell me about the little girl that was injured, that was left alone to her own devices when there was abuse going on and there was no one around. Yet she went and she told someone and there was no one that listened. And so then you develop this ability not to feel safe anywhere you went. There's nothing wrong with you. But what happened? What happened to that little girl? What happened? What happened to you? And when they get that look in their eye, like nobody's ever asked me what happened to me before.
Because what you're doing, you're showing them their survival story. This is what you're doing. You're showing them it's like having a mirror that is all dusty and you're not seeing your purpose. You're not seeing your value because no one has have told you that you have purpose and value. And that's what when we think of generational cycle, it's also that impact of negative confirmation of individuals, so you are not able to see your value. So when you come and you ask those questions, what happened, it gives them validation that, hey, you know what, I have strength within me, I have overcome a lot, this is who I am, and I am a survivor. I have my story. Let me be. You are giving me the opportunity to be my own storyteller. You are literally empowering them to channel their own energy because they have been beaten down through those challenges that they're not able to find themselves. But
And to change the narrative.
yes,
That is my mission, is to change the narrative. In your head, you've told yourself what you've heard society say, what you've heard teachers say. You're lazy, you can't learn, you don't want to learn. But when we look at it and we say, wow, what was it like to be that little boy or that little girl to have to get up every day and go to school and not have anybody to trust, anybody to rely on, anybody to tell what was going on? And then if you did tell, you weren't believed. But yet You continued and you pressed forth. What was it like? What was it? That to me is a warrior. Like you're
Yes,
60,
resiliency.
you're 60 years old right now, and you're sitting before me. You should see the light come on in their eyes.
Mhm.
And then like I said, let's change this narrative. Let's change this story.
Yes. So I wanted to share another poem because when we think of trauma, we also need to understand the impact of trauma, the depression that develops from it, the anxiety that develops from it, the isolation that develops from it, the self harm, the self doubt, all those things that develop from it. So that poem in itself, I want everyone out there that is listening, especially when you have children, or if you're a therapist or you're a professional and you're working with someone and you say, yay, in order for you to be able to overcome those challenges, you have to love yourself first. But if you're not taught how to love yourself, there's no way you can love yourself. So let us just listen to it.
I had a therapist tell me once, it was ironic how much love I gave out because I didn't give much to myself. She laughed, like self-love was a sick joke. I chuckled and cried at home. I had someone tell me once I could not love anyone else until I learned to love myself. This time I got to laugh. This time the sick joke was mine, was me. Might as well wait forever. I remember hating myself at the age of 7. Journals filled to the brim with criticisms by 8. I had enough pages to stitch them into wings, to fly close enough to the sun to see my tears turn to steam, felt the wax burn on my shoulders and mold into thick skin. I was 9 when I wanted to die. 13 when I found a solution, figured if I could cut my legs enough, gravity would let me go. When it didn't, I tied a pillowcase around my neck, twisting like the rope swings I knew so well from childhood. Heard my heartbeat pound in my ears like a warning drum, then fade. I'd almost convinced myself I'd done it. When I started writing, I smeared my blood on every page to remind myself that everything beautiful has a consequence. I'd hoped to stall the clotting long enough to give myself to the craft and let myself go. I have died so many times. So when I told you that loving you almost makes life worth it, I was not joking. When I tell you that loving you almost makes me forget how much I hate myself, it is not poetry. Loving you is taking all the love I could never give myself and putting it to good use. It is reminding myself that if someone can love a dying thing this way, can hold the Lazarus of my body and give thanks for the way it holds back, if someone can kiss the scars, administer the pills, absorb the bad days, and wake up smiling next to me, then I can try to breathe again. Because self-love does not always come first, or second, or even ever. But your love be the guardrail on the ledge, be the drawers that hide all the sharp things, be the body that carries my collapsed frame into bed, be the flowers you bought. Because even though they are dying too, they still dance. Love will not heal me, will not wipe my slate of a body clean. I will always be a woman of wounds, of rope-marked neck and melted skin. Love will not heal me, but it will hold my hand if I ever heal myself, and maybe teach me a joke that I can stay alive long enough to laugh at. I love you enough to want to love myself too.
Yes. So for individuals out there listening, we know that we all are going through a difficult time right now. It is causing tremendous mental health challenges from children all the way up to older adults. And the most thing we can do is provide love to each other, give love, embrace love. Give it out because we never know who is dying inside because of all the pain that they're going through. And it's difficult for them to tap in. So as we're going through, we're doing this show for us to be able to connect, to be able to talk about the impact of mental health, to be able to talk about suicidality, to talk about depression, to talk about all those challenges that individuals are going through. Loved ones are losing their lives, and increase in suicide attempts among children are at the highest. Domestic violence is at the highest. Every possible challenge you can think of as a result is at the highest. Individuals that used to go to mandatory reporters, whether they were able to go to the doctor, able to go to school, able to go to places that would be able to identify challenges and abuse and neglect, it is not at the highest height as of the moment, because we're not so engaging within the community. So if you or anyone you know that are going through any challenges, we are asking you to please, if you're going through and you need mental health support, you need to be able to talk to a professional, call us. Call someone in your local community. Reach out to a professional to get the help that you need, because this is a serious, serious problem and we all need the help. So, as we're going through, it is very important for us to be able to get the mental health support that we need. Miss Shanika, the floor is yours.
Yeah, Dr. Stevens, we talked about doing Breaking the Chains. And when first presented with this, you had shared with me the story of Miss America. And I have to tell the audience that I don't typically watch the news. I may read something on Google just to hear a highlight or what have you. But you sparked my interest to find out the story of this young lady. And I had a conversation with a friend of mine last night. And the conversation was, oh man, this woman was beautiful. This woman had it all. Like, what would make this woman do this? And so then I said, you know what? Let me get on the computer and let me look. I had no idea that this woman was like Entertainment Tonight correspondent. This woman had access to superstars that she interviewed on the walkway, the runway, this woman was on TV, this woman in someone else's view had it all. And it got me to thinking, because the comment was, we'll never know. My friend said, we'll never know. We'll never know what was going on with that person. And I started to think, and I don't know if this woman had gone to a professional or had sought mental health. One of the things that I thought about was, in my mind was, wow, we may never know. However, if this woman was struggling with whatever she may have been struggling with if it was insecurities, if it was whatever, the privacy that a client or individual has with their clinician is a safe space that is built between the individual and that person that's servicing them. And we don't know if she was receiving services. But my hope was that even in the midst of the inability to feel that there was another alternative, that perhaps, hopefully, she was able to share with someone the pain that she was feeling, the pain that she was going through. Because one of the fallacies, I think it is that we project, especially social media, we project that everything's okay. And I tell people, do not look at people's pictures and think that they're living the grand life. A lot of people will post a great shot that they cut that day, but that does not mean that they're having a great life. So what comes to my mind is that if you are struggling with any anything on your heart, anything that you want to talk about that you don't feel that your family members, your friends, your coworkers, whomever will understand. I know, because I'm in the field, that I am raising up clinicians to provide services where it's a safe space to be with no judgment at all, at all. And that is such an important piece to it, because we all have things that we go through. It doesn't matter if you're living in the limelight and you're interviewing superstars and you're doing whatever. We all go through stuff. We all have a background, a history, a story to tell. We all struggle in some sort of way. And there's no shame in asking for help. There's no shame in saying, I need somebody to talk with. So, I just wanted to give some acknowledgement to the beautiful life that we lost. Not only her, right, but Regina King's son. This is a woman that we see on TV and different shows and stuff, and she just did an interview with her son, and then he committed suicide. And so the idea is, we don't know. We don't ever know.
Yes, we may not know the cause of committing suicide, but we do know that we have lost lives. We have lost precious gem that was sharing the space with us. We
Yeah.
do know that society, us included, there is a gap somewhere that is allowing so many precious lives to be falling through. We do know that there are areas for us to be able to develop and strengthen. So, based on what we know, we have to start being intentional about what we want to see. We have to be intentional about our changes when we are showing kindness to people, when we are showing appreciation, when we are being present as therapists. We need to be intentional about what we are doing. So we do know that we may not know why or the fundamentals behind why someone has lost their life or taken their lives, but we do know that we have lost precious gems. So for everyone out there, have conversations, start having conversations within your family, at your workplace, co-workers. We are seeing a high number of individuals that they may not have food at home, they may not be able to pay their bills. My sister this week actually just went to work, and she was monitoring one of her co-workers, and she realized that that co-worker, anytime it was lunchtime, he used to go at the back where everyone was not, and he was pretending to be having lunch. And she went to him, she had conversations with him, and she actually went and created, and he was 24. So when we think of individuals not having food, going to work, and everything to that extent, it has no age limit. She actually prepared a huge bag of food for him, and she brought it to work in a smiley face bag. And she gave it to him. And then later on she said he texted her and told her he brought it home to the family. That's what he had for supper. So when we think of individuals, it's not only children that are not having food, our co-workers also don't have. Our co-workers are also going through hardship. And being present and being intentional about our actions, we'll be able to understand what we're doing, and we may be able to start saving lives and understanding why individuals are choosing to be able to be away from us within this world because of the hardship that they're going through. Let us start being intentional about our actions.
Absolutely. And I think with intentionality, then there goes like breaking those chains, right?
Yes. Yes, you got it. You got it. Yes. That is
Yeah.
it. So this has been a great hour. So I really enjoy our very, very first Breaking Chain Live. I am your host, Ali. I'm Doctor. I'm getting used to it, but
Dr. Stevens.
Dr. Leon Stevens. I am your host, and we will be bringing this live to you every Wednesday night from 7 p.m. If there are anyone out there that would like to be a guest on our show, please do not hesitate to contact us, and we will be more than happy to set an appointment, have a conversation, and to see what you can bring to the table. And we have Miss Shanika, who is our clinical director and a great therapist. I'm not saying that because I know her, but she's actually really good at what she does.
I appreciate that. And I also want to implore for our listeners that if there's topics that you're interested in, that you want to hear us talk about or bring you information on, evidence-based, fact-based, not just conversational, we will bring it to you in a conversational way. We love sharing stories in an expert, and from our experience, but we will always back it up with facts.
Yes.
So if there's anything that you want to know more about, just send us a message. And if there's, like Dr. Stevens said, anyone out there who is definitely needing services, please give us a call at Holistic Elevation. Our email is on here. It's intake@holisticelevation.org, or you can call our number at 302-278-0026, and we will be so ecstatic to deliver amazing holistic mental, behavioral, emotional, holistic health services to you.
Yes. And as we continue going through within the coming month, as we continue to celebrate Black History Month, we have some amazing activities planned for this month. We're in the process of creating a PSA called Breaking Chains. We're looking into getting community partners in creating that PSA. And we actually wanted for the month of February, we're going to be closing off for one of the not PSA, but script that we actually wrote. And I am trying to pull it up, so bear with me. So it's called Breaking Chains, and that is for all of us. Let us go ahead, be intentional, and break chains. Breaking chains. I am the pathway my ancestors created from their hands, so I'm breaking chains. Sorry. I am the present that understand the past and creating an unapologetic future. I am the legend of tomorrow, so I'm breaking chains. I am the woman that mourned the pain of her daughters and yearned the safety of her sons, so I'm breaking chains. We are the husbands, fathers, and brothers that support the family, yet our trauma are unimaginable, so we're breaking chains. We are the representation of the past. We are the inventors of the future. We are the legends of tomorrow, so we're breaking chains. We are the change. We are unapologetic. We are intentional for change. We are mentally emancipated, so we're breaking change. Because change history, make history, so be history. We're breaking chains. Thank you.
Thank you. We are breaking chains, Dr. Stevens.
Yes, we are. So with that being said, everyone, we will see you next time and have a wonderful week. Bye.